the 16th floor. I just need a little more. Rocking out to Lorna Shore, making the things swing back and forth. Look at us, we're out of sorts. Thank God we're not keeping score. Losing our mind to count whole chords, making that thing swing back and forth.
Hey guys, Augiesaint here and welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and as you can see by the intro, Hailey is absolutely crazy. She is just melting, well, freezing every single boss in the game. The solo bosses don't stand a chance. I can pretty much just sit there and snipe them all without even needing to use the big laser beam, although you can use that and it does quite a lot of damage. But for everything like pre-Swamp Walker, you really don't even need to use it. You can just pre-aim, sit there with your sniper and go to town and the bosses fall over. And the same thing happens in grouping, which is crazy to me. Obstructor, one phase. Infernal Turtle, one phase. Tony, however, we couldn't one phase because every single group we got was either dead bunnies or Volbees or AFK bunnies. I even had one sitting in spawn AFK completely. So unfortunately, I don't have any good Tony footage for you guys. But when we did finally clear Tony, I did like 60 mil damage and I only used my Hailey ability, my snipe and my C. And that is, I think that's about half of his HP or maybe a little bit less than half of his HP. So she's pretty much on par with Glay, even though Tony is strong against cold, which is absolutely crazy to me. And Hailey's just so much easier to play than Lepic and Glay, so she's just replacing Lepic and Glay for me right now. I don't think I'm going to play them on bossing anymore. I'm going to go to Hailey because she can play from a safe distance. The only bad thing is when you go down into your sniper, you really have to pay attention to the bosses. Say like for Tony example, when Tony starts aiming at you, you need to immediately get out of your sniper and roll away. I did actually manage to take one hit from him with this build, so you can take one hit and walk away from it. So that's a lot more than what Lepic could do. But anyway, without further ado, let's just hop straight into the build. First of all, we're going to have a look at her skills. Most importantly, her passive skill. This does give you increased weak point damage depending on how far you are from the target. And it caps out at 25 meters or more. So basically, you want to be 25 meters or more away. They have added a very nice and easy way to see this. If you look at the bottom right, just to the right above my sniper, my Z skill, you can actually see, if you aim at this guy, you can see that it is lit up now in the bottom there. It's only like half full. That's because we're not the whole 25 meters. If you look at the rangefinder on the scope, we're only at 17 meters. If we go back a bit, that's going to fill up now as we are 27 meters away. So we're over that 25 meter threshold. So just keep her passive in mind when you are going for boss kills and that you're not too close. And another thing to keep in mind is your snipe is actually going to knock you back. So you always want to position yourself so you don't actually fall off a ledge. Because if you are shooting, it's going to knock you back. You see, it does knock you back quite a fair amount. And if you do fall off like a little ledge or something, you will actually cancel out the sniper and it goes through that whole animation. So you're very vulnerable if you don't position yourself correctly. I found this out the hard way, bursting Swamp Walker, spawning right into the middle and then like shooting him to the side over there. And you just like keep going, push back and you fall off the little platform. And there you go. There goes your one phase for Swamp Walker, because he'll just stand up and you'll be pushed out of your sniper and then he'll go immune and then everybody is sad. So just keep that in mind. Do not get knocked off edges. Also, one thing to note is you can actually activate your Q while you are inside your sniper. So you see there, you press Q, you can actually apply the cryo rounds. Now those cryo, the debuff you can see underneath there, they give you, I believe it's like 50% increased damage. It's crazy amount of damage, so you want to make sure you have those. So that's why you want to make sure that if you're not going to use your C like I did in the intro against like all the weaker bosses, as soon as the boss spawned and I was like in my sniper, you saw I was always spamming my Q to try and get the cryo rounds before I actually started going to town, because every time you shoot, it will take one of the stacks away. As you can see, there's 7 and then we go down to 6 over there. And you just want to make sure you have those on. And you can also get those from the C. So that's why a lot of people like to start out with the C. And on the more beefier, tankier bosses like Swamp Walker and above, I do usually start with the C. And then last thing to remember about a kit is you want to get your V on as well. Make sure that this gets to 16 stacks before you actually start shooting, because by getting it to 16 stacks is where you'll get the most crit chance out of it. If you see, we are at 16 stacks, so we can go look at my skill crit. We are at 96.8% crit. Not 100 unfortunately, because I don't have the maxed out crit on my reactor yet, but I will eventually want to pick that up and then go to the 100% crit rate. But for now, 96.8 is doing the job for me. So just make sure you are at stacks, and also when you are rolling or when you are grappling, it does actually remove some stacks, but they build up fairly fast. So you can see there you are back right up to 16 right away. You're gonna roll out of trouble. And by the time you set up your sniper, you will be back out again. And then the last thing I could mention is the sniper. If you don't actually manage to get all your shots off, so let's go for 2 shots, depending, or 3 shots maybe. When you do cancel the sniper, it's going to actually take into consideration how many shots you didn't use, and it's going to give you a faster cooldown. As you can see, my sniper is cooling down pretty fast. If you get into a bad position, just fire 1 shot, and then don't be afraid to just cancel your sniper out and then move into a better position. As well, the sniper skill doesn't use any MP, it's only on a cooldown, and then when you pop into it, when you run out of ammo or when you cancel it, it's going to consider when it's going to start cooling down again, so you don't have to worry about MP for it. The main thing about your MP is for your 1, 2, and 3. And then one last final thing is when you are in your sniper, if you hit weak points, you'll actually restore MP. Watch our MP bar, we hit the weak point and we get, I believe it's 15% back of your MP. So that's why it's really easy to maintain your MP and always have your buffs up if you just keep hitting the weak spots, which you should be doing for that damage boost. Anyway, you can see we're back up to full MP. We can cancel our sniper, run around, and then wait for sniper to come back, and always maintaining our V at that max stacks. So now let's have a look at the module setup. Now this is what I used throughout the intro. This is kind of like my grouping build. This could be even stronger for solo, but as you see in the intro, we absolutely destroyed all the solo bosses, and this is the exact build I was using, so no need to change. Although I will give you guys some pointers with the cooldown of air and the strong mentality when we get there. Let's first of all start out with Dangerous Ambush. This is a massive 50% skill power increase when the bosses are knocked down, so when they are kneeling, and then 25% when they are not targeting you. For group play, absolutely amazing. And then for solo play, when you knock them down, that 50% increase is absolutely huge, especially if you want to go ahead and like knock them down with your sniper and then switch over to your storm snare just to get a massive hit. I've hit up to like 19.3 million with this, almost to 20 million. And then moving over, we have increased HP because we just don't really need more damage. You could, however, put a attack mod on there if you want more damage, but really, you guys saw what she does. You don't need it. You could even swap to HP amp to get a little bit more HP, but it will reduce your max shields. So that you could really run because your shields, I mean, shields are pretty useless at this point in the game, but we just like to keep it simple and run with the max HP. And then moving over to Spear and Shield, a little bit of defense as well as 8% skill power. Now the thing with Hailey is you want skill power and not skill power modifier, as her modifiers are absolutely crazy already. As you can see there, 3600, and then on the 2 we have a 8900 skill power modifier. So just getting flat skill power is actually more beneficial to getting skill power modifier, is why we run it this way. So Spear and Shield is going to give you more damage than say like Iron Defense, because Iron Defense is a skill power modifier, so it's not going to really give you as much damage boost as what this will. And the defense boost is just a nice little thing on the side. And then for the crit mods, we run Frontline, Skill Concentration, and Emergency Measures. Early on, I found this to be like the biggest bottleneck for me. If you do not hit that 100% or close to 100% crit rate, because with all 3 of these mods on and without having crit on my reactor, I believe we're at like 86% crit rate. So that is like a 14% chance not to crit, and my unlucky ass kept getting the 14% of not critting. So that is a big thing I could recommend. If you are not hitting that crit and it's not being consistent, I would actually drop out Glacial Cinctium at that point and then go for Skill Insight. So early on in your progression, before you have a reactor with crit chance, you might want to go for all 4 crit mods. Or even just if you get a different roll on your reactor like crit damage, you could then switch out the Glacial for the Skill Insight. It is a little bit wasteful as you don't need all this crit to get that last 15%, but I would rather take the consistency over not hitting the crits, because the difference between a crit and a non-crit is a massive damage difference. So like I said, you just got to play around with this depending on how it feels to you. If you're not critting enough and doesn't feel consistent, then drop that out for Skill Insight, and it will definitely give you that 100% crit rate. With all 4 crit rate mods and then using her second skill, you will guarantee that 100% crit rate max. You'll actually go over 100%, although you can't see that, but it will be a little bit beneficial for bosses that have like a high crit res, like Tony for example. And then we move over to our cooldown, Nimble Fingers. Now you can actually switch this one out for MP conversion. It gives you like 10% more cooldown. but it will take away MP. You don't really need that cooldown. I mean, especially for soloing, you are like one-shotting the bosses. So you could even recatalyze this to like a pure damage mod if you wanted to for solo. But like I showed you guys in the intro, this build absolutely destroys everything solo anyway. So no need to go ahead and change that. If you want to have more cooldown for public lobbies, then switch out Nimble Fingers for MP conversion. You'll just get hit with that negative 15% MP. It's not that bad, as then we can take Strong Mentality and then switch this one out for Maximize Conservation. You'll lose a little bit of skill power modifier, but you'll gain much more skill cost reduction as well as the cooldown. So that's what you could do if you want to min-max it further. But honestly, the only difference there was like 3 seconds on this. It went from a 22 seconds down to 19 seconds with the cooldown. And then obviously the MP drain will be a lot better. So it's not the greatest in the world. Maybe you can switch out Strong Mentality for Maximize Conservation just to get your V to last even longer. But the way I have my Zenith set up, we are getting 8 shots in the magazine. So 8 times 15 is like 120% of our MP back. So we are able to fill our MP bar and some. So that's why Strong Mentality does it for me. You could switch it out like I said, but then you'd have to go ahead and add another kata. So maybe save yourself the kata, but you don't need it. But if you want it for comfiness, you can go ahead and do that. Totally up to you. And then we have Chill Specialist over here just for increased chill skill power. Now you could switch this out to focus on chill if you want. You'll lose a little bit of damage, but you will gain that in cooldown. So instead of hitting as hard, you can hit more often. The cooldown doesn't make too much of a difference, but if you do switch out for focus on chill and you switch this out to the bigger cooldown, I believe this goes down to about 18 seconds at that point. So you could get it up even faster, do a little bit less damage, but you could have it up more often, like a second or so faster than what you usually can. But this is how I run mine for group play and for solo, and it just works for me. It does crazy amounts of damage. Now let's have a look at the components, reactors, and the weapon, as these are all very important parts to the kit, because the weapon gets used as a stat stick for your 4 ability. That's why you want to run with the piercing light. However, you can use the afterglow sword. I've even gotten away with using the secret garden last week, as we weren't able to farm any reactors. I had a good reactor for the secret garden, so I used it on her, and she was able to one phase all the bosses solo up until Swamp Walker. When we got to Swamp Walker, we didn't have quite enough damage with the secret garden, but everything pre-Swamp Walker we were deleting using our secret garden. But as you guys can see, the difference there is 182,000 attack power, and her Zenith skill actually pulls from your weapon as a stat stick, so that 193k is just the highest firearm attack in the game so far. That's why piercing light is the best for her. So this week you want to make sure you go grab yourself a frozen singularity reactor. While we are here, we could look at the reactor real quick. So piercing light, obviously that's the mounting you want, and then skill critical hit rate or skill critical hit damage, whichever one you get first. And then obviously the most important is getting that additional attack for Colossus. Now this boosts your damage tremendously, so if you can get Colossus damage and anything else, I would pretty much take that with the piercing light reactor. So that's going to be the most important, piercing light mounting, and then additional damage versus Colossus. I like to go for the crit hit rate, as we can then drop the mod. Like I said before, we can change this over to Glacial Cinctium. If you don't get crit on your reactor, you're going to want to drop this one out for skill insight. And what you could also do later on, if you really want to do as much damage as you can, you drop Strong Mentality, catalyze this to a arrow, and then put skill insight there as well as Glacial Cinctium, and that way you'll have 100% crit. And then on your reactor, you want to try and go for crit hit damage and Colossus. I believe crit hit damage and Colossus will be the highest damage output you can get. But if you don't hit that 100% crit, you won't have the consistency. That's why I say go for the 100% crit first, so you can have that consistent damage, and then you boost it up. But if you want the highest possible damage, crit damage, Colossus damage, go to town and pray that that 15% doesn't eat you like it does for me. And then the Slayer set is very important that we run this as well, because this will give us skill power of 26% increase. That's massive. But the rounds per magazine is also very important, as this ties into how we have our piercing light set up to actually go ahead and get that 8th shot on the Zenith. So now let's have a look at our piercing light. The rolls are very important on this, the main thing being the Colossus damage and the rounds per magazine. We need a 12% on this, because it ties in with everything else to give us a 100% increase on the mag, to then go from 4 shots to 8 shots on the Zenith. So most importantly, rounds per magazine, then Colossus damage, and then it's a mix up between firearm crit hit damage, weak point damage, as well as firearm attack. I think maybe I would like to switch out the weak point damage for firearm attack. I'm not sure, I haven't tested those yet, as I don't feel like rerolling these. I mean, you guys saw the damage it's doing with these rolls. Absolutely crazy. Now finally, let's have a look at the piercing light build. You will have to build this up as well, so that is a little bit unfortunate with her, but once you have it set up, she is just gonna clap cheeks, as you guys have seen. So this is what I have built for her. These two mods being the most important, as that's can get us at 8 shots with the 30% over there, 49 over there, the 9% from the Slayer, and then the 12% from the roll on the weapon. That's going to get us exactly to 100%. So that is why we go from 4 shots in the Zenith all the way up to 8 shots. Just a massive damage increase, as every shot is hitting like over 7 million damage. So you guys could see the difference there is actually pretty massive. And then for the rest of the mods, we're going just the normal flat firearm attack, as that is just going to boost it even higher. We have concentration priority there for crit hit damage. Then we have some more crit hit damage with better concentration. And then we move over to our weak point damage mods. We have weak point sight just for increase of weak point there. And then weak point expansion. Now this one is better for solo. As for solo, you get a massive damage boost of 140% weak point on the first hit. So that has a 10-second cooldown. So every 10 seconds you will be getting that boost. Whereas if you're playing in a group and doing like much harder group bosses, maybe for Tony or for Molten Fortress. Well, Molten Fortress I was one phasing anyway, so I still used weak point on Molten Fortress. But where I would switch this out then is for Tony, would switch out to Special Sight. You get movement speed while aiming is negative, but you get weak point damage 30% while aiming. So every single shot in your Zenith is going to be 30% increased weak point damage over there. This will be better for grouping overall, as well as solo any bosses that take more than 4 shots. Because if you actually do 4 shots, that 4 shots of 30% increased damage is going to be 120% increased weak point. And then the 5th shot is going to actually be 150% increase. So at that point, it's going to be stronger than this if it's within a 10-second cooldown. So keep that in mind. Maybe for Swamp Walker, you could put this on or do a little bit more damage, or like anything Swamp Walker and above, where you will be emptying out your whole magazine. This is actually going to net you more damage overall, but I'm like killing all the bosses with like 2 or 3 shots left in my mag. So for the most part, we just run weak point, but it's very close between these two. Just keep in mind how much, shots you are doing and how fast the boss is dying. So this, bigger burst, this, more consistency. And then lastly, we have Insight Focus and Focus Fire. Now, Focus Fire is just some increased weak point and firearm crit hit damage. Insight Focus, you could switch this out for the blue crit mod, but if we get to 100% crit mod with our skills, I don't believe it really matters. That's why I just chose to go with Insight Focus for a little bit more increased crit hit damage. So that is the build for the Piercing Light. Now I would probably do the same thing on the Afterglow. You can use the Afterglow if you want it, or even the Secret Garden like I said before. Same thing, you just want to try and get as much ammo onto it, and then as much flat damage, crit damage, and weak point damage as you can for whatever weapon you decide to use. But I would highly try and get yourself the Piercing Light, as it's not actually too bad to farm the Piercing Light. I believe you can get the Piercing Light without doing any outpost, so it's not a bad farm overall. And then as well, the reactors are dropping this week. I think it's like day 2 right now, so go out there and go farm to your heart's content. We're actually going to go farm a better one today on stream. I want to get a gold on Colossus or a gold on crit damage, whichever one we can get to first is what I want to go and hunt. But that's going to be it for the video, so go out there and pop some heads with Hailey. She is doing crazy amounts of damage. Let me know what you guys thought of the video. If I missed out on anything, if I didn't explain anything good, let me know in the comments. I will try and answer any questions you guys have. Join the community Discord as well. We got like almost 400 members in there now, and come check out the streams at twitch.tv/Augiesaint. I love to see you guys there. I love chatting with you guys and, like figuring stuff out together. We all have a great time there. Drop on by and I'll catch you guys in the next video as well as the streams. Augiesaint out.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the